Yeah.
Good evening. Welcome to Oconee County Board of Commissioners meeting. Today is Tuesday, January 7th, 2025. After a moment of silence, we're going to ask Holly to lead us in the pledge. Please stand. Thank you.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our first item of business will be to adopt the agenda.
Make a motion to approve the agenda as submitted.
I second.
We have a motion second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries. Next item is statements and remarks from citizens. This is for anything not on tonight's agenda. Have any statements or remarks from commissioners?
No, sir.
We'll make an announcement. Our first town hall meeting was scheduled for January 21st. Turns out the planning commission is going to be meeting that night as well as the Board of Elections. So we're going to move our first town hall of 2025 to January the 29th. That'll be the same day as our strategic planning. Then we'll come over here and have a town hall the 29th at 6 p.m. Our next item is to approve the minutes from December 3rd, 2024.
I make a motion, we approve the minutes from December 3rd, 2024, as submitted.
We have a motion and a second to approve the minutes. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries. Now we'll move into our hearings and actions on zoning matters. Rezone petition shall be presented by the county staff with no time limit. The applicant and those signing up to speak for the petition shall be allowed a total of 20 minutes. Less the applicant's reserved for rebuttal. Those signing up to speak against the petition shall be allowed a total of 20 minutes as well. Public comments shall then be closed and the board have an opportunity to ask questions. And then the board shall take action as set out in the Unified Development Code. With that, we'll call our first rezone, which is rezone request P 24-0217, Townley Family Partnership. It's a rezone from AG to AR. 299.94 acres on Hog Mountain Road, Hodges Mill Road in Rocky Branch.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioners, again, this is rezone P 24-0217, Townley Family Partnership. This is parcels A 04018B, A 04030, B 03028, B 03017A, B 03028A, and B 03017B, and B 03023. They're currently zoned AG and AR in the suburban neighborhood character area. And again, the request is to rezone approximately 194 acres from AG to AR for a residential subdivision. These are the recorded plats you have in your application packet for the subject properties. This is the concept plan showing the delineation of the current zoning of AR around Eastville and the AG zoning in gray. The concept plan showing the proposed number of lots. These are architectural images submitted with the application. And staff recommends conditional approval of the request to rezone the 299.94 acres to AR with our three standard conditions. Number 4, all conditions of approval shall apply to parcels B 03029D and B 03031B as indicated on the concept plan. Number 5, no final plat shall be granted for a period of 10 years from the date of Board of Commissioners approval. Number 6, all areas along exterior boundaries and rights-of-way abutting Georgia Highway 53, Rocky Branch Road, and Hodges Mill Road shall indicate an open space area 15 feet wide. The design of the open space area is to be approved by the planning director at the time of preliminary plat submission. Within the open space area, a buffer that contains a 10-foot wide and 4-foot tall berm shall be installed with evergreen landscaping that is 6 foot high at the time of planting prior to granting final plat approval. Number 7, an 8-foot wide concrete multi-use path shall be installed within the public right-of-way of public right-of-way of the roads that connect Rocky Branch Road and Hodges Mill Road. The multi-use path shall also be installed along Hodges Mill Road south to the intersection with Georgia Highway 53. Multi-use path shall be installed prior to granting final plat approval. The Planning Commission recommended denial. Thank you.
Now we'll hear from the owner or the agent of the owner.
Good evening. I'm Jeff Carter with Carter Engineering Consultants, 1010 Commerce Drive in Bogart, Georgia. Glad to be with you tonight. I'm representing Townley Farms Partnership. Mr. Townley is here tonight, as well as Russell Wills to represent the family. If I could just direct your attention to the screen, I've got a few slides here that I'd like to go through. First of all, this just orients us where this property is located. The property in yellow, so the yellow outlines are parcels that the Townley family owns and are the subject of this rezone. We've got Hodges Mill Road here, Highway 53 on the southern part, and then Rocky Branch Road here. So all these yellow tracks are the subject rezone tonight. The area in green is the future Dawson Park, which is obviously right across the street in close proximity to the subject property. And then the property in the light bluish color is the North Oconee High School and the elementary school. So this is a copy of the zoning map from the county zoning maps. And the area in green is designated as agricultural residential, which has a 2-acre minimum. And again, the yellow highlighted tracks are the subject tracks. I wanted to point out that this green line, this zoning line, goes right through the middle of the subject parcels. And what we're simply trying to do is fill in the area that's currently ag with the AR zoning designation. So all this area here would, if the zoning is approved, would be green. The area in blue that you see here and here is currently zoned R1, which is a density of 1.5 acres per lot. The area in the light gray up and down Malcolm Bridge Road, you might call that light purple, is zoned R2, I believe, which is a 1.2 acre minimum. So you've got that here. And then in between the future park and the high school, you've got that zoning designation too. The point being is there are several properties right around there that have a higher density and a smaller lot size. The color red here represents the commercial designation there. So it just kind of gives you an idea of what we're asking for and the surrounding properties. There's several neighborhoods that, as you can see, are already zoned agricultural residential. So we're asking to be zoned the same zoning designation as they are. This map just gives you an idea of the even further out what the zoning looks like. And so we're right here in the middle. You go 1 mile out, 2 miles out, 3 miles out, 4 miles out. And the purpose of this map is really just to show you that there is a large amount of green that is zoned agricultural residential. So it's the same density. There's a lot right around the property, but then, you know, the further you go out, you do see quite a bit of agricultural residential. The yellow color that you see here represents a higher density, a smaller lot size than what we're asking for. So there's, and then the pink area or purplish area is going to be your commercial further to the north. This map represents the future land use map of Oconee County. Okay, this is the map that has been voted on and approved. The subject property is in bold here, and all the property that surround it has a suburban neighborhood character. That's the tan area, and our property fits, all of the property fits within this character area. And I wanted to read, this represents the future directive and the goals of the county. And I printed out a couple of pages from the comprehensive plan for suburban neighborhood, and I just wanted to point out a couple of things. General characteristic of suburban neighborhood. This character area includes established suburban neighborhoods and conventional subdivisions and master plan developments. This character area consists principally of single-family detached houses with some higher density housing included in a planned development or near an established non-residential area. Houses tend to be on 1.5 to 2 acre or larger lots on public water. So we fit that very well. We're asking for 2 acre minimum. And then if you look down below that, there's a chart here that says some of the infrastructure needs in this suburban neighborhood. Public water is available, which we have. It includes a well-developed network of local, collector, and arterial roads, which we talked about that just a minute ago. Parks and recreation facilities serve the area. So with the new park right across the road, that meets that definition. Schools are nearby. We've got schools that are in very close proximity. So really everything in this character area, I feel like this rezone fits. So what we're asking for, there's a total of 120 lots on this site plan, this rendering that you see. That represents a maximum number of lots that you can get on this property under this zoning designation. 88 of those lots are in the ag zoning. So we're not asking for 120 lots to be rezoned, because if you remember that line that went right through the middle of the property, some of that's already zoned agricultural residential. So there's 88 lots that are currently in the ag zoning that we're asking for. So this property is within walking distance to the park, to the school systems. There'll be pedestrian connection throughout the neighborhood. There'll be some passive and traditional amenity areas. There's some ponds that are existing that will remain on the property, and there could be some paths and some things like that. So it'd be a really nice neighborhood. And I did want to point out too that at the bottom of this screen, Mr. Townley lives across Hog Mountain Road. Now, why is that important? Well, I think it is important that we don't have somebody from California or New York or Atlanta coming in to try to develop homes. This is somebody who's been in this community for generations and lives right across the street. So we know that he's going to do a quality development. And not only that, if you look in the Eastville area, you look in the up and down Rocky Branch Road, this gentleman has invested an awful lot of money in buying older homes, rehabilitating them, and really everything he does is very, very high quality. He lives and works there on what used to be the UGA research property. And he spent a lot of money on rehabilitating some of the barns, even bringing in some barns from the university, and everything that he's done has been very high quality. So I think that's a good positive for this project. I did want to point out that there are a couple of recommendations that we wanted to briefly mention. And if you don't mind, if you could go to your staff report and take a look at the, I guess number 6. Staff recommendation number 6. I'd like to talk to you about that for a minute. So what that is the open space that is along the road frontage of this entire property. And it's a lot. You've got Highway 53, you've got Rocky Branch, you've got 3 road frontages. And the suggestion by staff reads, all areas along exterior boundaries and rights of way abutting Georgia 53, Rocky Branch Road, and Hodges Mill Road shall indicate an open space area 15 feet wide. The design of the open space areas to be approved by the Director of Planning and Code Enforcement at the time of preliminary plat submission. Within the open space area, a buffer that contains a 10-foot wide and 4-foot tall berm shall be installed with evergreen landscaping that is 6 feet high at the time of planning prior to granting final plat approval. Now, we don't have any issues with this recommendation. We're fine with it. There's no problem in the width. The only thing that we have, basically, we're suggesting to clean this up and give it more definition so that years down the road, there's no confusion on what this open space will look like. And this is what I would like to present tonight. First of all, we got 3 options for the open space. Why three options? Well, as I mentioned before, we have a lot of road frontage, and we feel like if you have the same buffer, same looking open space up and down all three of these roads, it's not gonna look real well. And so this is really the only reason we have three buffer options. The first option here, you'll see in your packet, is option 1 with no earthen berm, no fence, 3 large canopy trees per 100 feet, 2 understory trees per 100 feet, and 20 shrubs per 100 feet, as well as the evergreen hedge 24 inches in height at time of planting installed behind the trees. So that is option 1. Option 2 includes a 2-foot to 6-foot earthen berm with a 48-inch tall 4-rail fence to be installed along top of the earthen berm, 4 large canopy trees per 100 feet, 20 shrubs per 100 feet, and no evergreen hedge on this one. Option 3 includes 3 large evergreen trees per 100 feet, 5 medium evergreen trees per 100 feet, 20 shrubs per 100 feet, no earthen berm, and no 4-rail fence. So it will give some variety there. I think it'll be a really good put together. So, all right. So on top of this slide here is verbatim the recommendation by staff that you see in your report. And what we're asking to do is simply to change it to read all areas along exterior boundaries and rights of way abutting GA 53, Rocky Branch Road, and Hodges Mill Road shall indicate an open space area 15 feet wide. The open space area shall include one of the 3 options presented in the applicant submitted illustration. The open space area parallel to GA 53 shall include option 3 only. The open space area shall be complemented by the time of final plat at the heights and placement presented in the illustration. We have talked to staff about this, so this is something and I went through them on to get their thoughts on it, and we had some good dialogue there, and so I think they do support this. There is one other recommendation that we would like for you to consider changing, and that is the recommendation for an 8-foot wide concrete multi-use path shall be installed within the public right-of-way for the roads that connect Rocky Branch Road and Hodges Mill Road. The multi-use path shall also be installed along Hodges Mill Road south at the intersection with GA 53, Hog Mountain Road. The multi-use path shall be installed prior to granting final plat approval. And we, again, on this recommendation, we don't have a problem with this recommendation either. We just know that there is a possibility that there will not be a connecting road once it goes to construction and design, and we're just not 100% sure that's going to be. So the purpose of the multi-use path is to get people from one side of the neighborhood over to the park. And if there's no connecting road, we would rather not do an 8-foot multi-use path through the subdivision. So what we're asking for is, in the event there is no connecting road, the 8-foot wide concrete multi-use path shall not be required. So we're asking simply for that to be removed. So those are the 2. Everything else we are okay with. We're just asking for those 2 recommendations to be modified. And in closing, I wanted to also mention that one of the requirements or one of the suggestions that staff has is that for 10 years, let me actually read this. This is number 5. No final plat shall be granted for a period of 10 years from the date of Board of Commissioners approval. And you guys may have seen this before. I've been in this a long time, and I've never seen this type of recommendation. 10 years is an awful long time. However, the landowner, the developer, Mr. Townley is okay with this recommendation. We don't have any problem with this recommendation. I think I just wanted to point out how unusual this is, and how that, by agreeing to this and by entering this into the record, there can't be any homes built on this property for 10 years. I just wanted to point that out, that is, I think, a really big, significant deal, that for 10 years, no houses can be built on this property. And so just in closing, I feel like this property fits very, very well in the comp plan. It makes a lot of sense from a land planning standpoint to take a property that has a zoning line right through the middle and just fill it in, so you don't have property that's split zoned. We're close to the park, the future park, close to the schools. A lot of things kind of line up for this property to be zoned agriculture residential. And we appreciate your support, and we'll be happy to try to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you for your time.
Yes, you want to reserve some rebuttal time?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Russell Wills?
Hey there, Russell Wills, 1030 Settlers Pass, Athens, Georgia. With Townley Family Partnership, just kind of a high level. One of the questions we've gotten is kind of why now, why rezone it? I'm probably responsible for some of that, just pressing some of our planning we've been doing with Tony, and just kind of pushing him or borderline harassing him to start to think through long-term planning, and just kind of his view for a lot of different things. And one of those is the land in Oconee County. And then looking at that north side of 53 with the split zone parcels, it's something in his lifetime he does want to get cleaned up as much as possible, his land holdings, and just kind of make sure he doesn't leave his kids with something that's unwieldy. So we've looked at that north side with all the split zoning, with the comprehensive plan and the changes to the comprehensive plan that were made last year. So kind of all that's kind of the perfect storm of us looking at that and just making sense that surrounded by AR split zone parcels, let's just go ahead and present this for a rezone. He's committed to farming. That's his passion, and he wants to continue doing that. I think the 10-year timeline is kind of further commitment to that, it's not like he's chomping at the bit to do something. He lives there. His dad lives there. Jeff drives to work down Rocky Branch Road every day. So, it's land that's near and dear to him. It's where he and his dad grew Christmas trees. But it's just something that we're trying to get cleaned up as we think through long-term planning. Everything he does is top notch across from the high school and Eastville, and he sees what he does in Oconee County as part of his legacy. And, this is no different. I mean, when the day comes that something does change out there, Lord willing, we'll find a way to make money on cows between now and 10 years from now. But if the time comes and it is developed in the future, then it'll be done at a high level. But I think our big thing is just wanting people to understand that, and that's why he's comfortable with the 10-year deal, is just he's enjoying what he's doing with the land now. So thank y'all.
It's time. 2:30. All right, now we'll move on to those who are here to speak against. Susanna?
I'll have a good New Year. I'm Susanna Heimel, and I'm here to speak against the rezone of 299 acres from AG to AR. This rezone will add 120 homes, and this is in addition to the 343 homes that were approved on the rezone at the Dooley property up the street. These homes haven't even started construction, so we do not know how they will impact Highway 53 in the county. That's 463 new homes with these two projects. What about the existing 115 that are listed for sale right now, and the 28 listings for residential lots that add another 350 plus acres for residential housing? In addition, I believe that the board may be motivated by tax revenue if you do approve this rezone. This year, the owner spent under $5,000 in taxes on these 7 properties involved in this rezone. These properties are assessed at close to $7 million. And I do understand that they're in conservation easement. I will say that just looking at 3 of those properties and refiguring the taxes, removing the conservation easement, And figuring the taxes as residential raises the taxes to just under $30,000 for 3 of the 7 properties. That's a $25,000 increase in tax revenue on 3 of the 7, and that's even without developing. I'm just looking at raw land. I feel we really need smart and thoughtful rezoning. The board needs to look beyond increase in revenue from these rezones and remember the taxpayers who elected them on their conservative platform. Lastly, all of you are born and raised in Oconee County. You love to speak about how you were such good stewards of the land. I think it's time to stand up and preserve the farmland for future generations. Thank you.
Carolyn?
Carolyn Elster, 1130 Richwood Trail, one of the first residents of Eastville Village subdivision, 1998. The land that will be rezoned will butt up against our whole neighborhood. And since I was the homeowner president from like 2005 to 2020, I kind of have a little interest in this rezone. Even though I'm really warming up to the fact that I know he just wants his land to be AR. I think from my point of view as a citizen since 1985 in Oconee, I had left and come back. I did write my letter to the editor after we had the 2 fatalities at Snow Mills in 53. And so my letter to the editor explained my experience for 26 years of living dangerously, making a left turn on Highway 53, which we know that GDOT's over that, and that's always been a problem. But since I was in the early subdivision, I came early, I always felt like it was really easy, but then later in the 2000s, as we started jamming up all the subdivisions in the northern sector, it became a chore to get out on 53. So I'm more coming from it as a citizen that lives there. And I know that Mr. Towney's been there, but all the citizens that I've talked to in my neighborhood are concerned, and these are about the 5 of them. First of all, I know in the future, and it's not 10 years from now, which is good, but we've seen our homes go from actually being very reasonable for the people that at my time, I was in my 40s, came $150,000, $200,000 homes. I know mine has gone up a lot, but I don't know, I still am not sure where the 1 million comes into play. I know that's the future. I'm just saying that I don't see the homes going up that fast to 1 million that would back up onto my area. I don't plan on leaving. I don't think I could afford to move to another home, but the residents that I have talked to, and especially when it came to property taxes, were very concerned because they did see theirs go up immensely. They know that when they call the property assessor department, they find out that it's because the comps, the real estate comps in the area are in the 500. So you're going to be paying, we know that type of housing will impact us. That's what I was trying to say. The traffic and infrastructure, I don't think is still in place for Malcolm Bridge and Hodges Mill and Rocky Branch. And as the person who spoke at the Planning Commission said, Rocky Branch Road and Malcolm Bridge is still very dangerous. I find 53 very dangerous. I have to, ever since the day I was told not to go make a left turn on Race Church Road and Malcolm Bridge, I have always turned at Hodges Mill and gone down Parker Creek. I have gone by Parker Creek almost probably 10,000 times because I go out left on Parker Creek just to avoid any future fatalities. So I talked about property taxes, and I think in that price, I'm still hoping maybe in 10 years, they'll say, hey, we don't want to build $1 million homes. We don't know where that came from. That might have been a growth projection. I have no idea. But basically in the northern corridor, from what I can tell, there's 300 to possibly 600,000. We're seeing them go up to 700,000. And I think there should be housing for people like me that when I was in my 40s working for the government in Athens, I could come here and buy a substantially good home and not have to have $1 million. So I still think that rubs me the wrong way. Lastly, with the, I know that we've talked about water and sewage, and this would probably have to be septic for 88 lots on 2-acre lots. But I did have a question from my neighbor who asked me the other day was, I don't understand how on 2 acres of to build a $1 million house, how they're going to pay to water the sod. And I thought that was a really good question. I know that's jumping the horse before the cart. But lastly, and I'm going to quote Chairman Daniel, and I'm just doing it because I read your State of the County address, which was very good. And it had just said that the 2 rezones for the massive Westland 78, which is now under construction in Parkside, stretching from Hog Mountain to Mars Hill Road, which we expect activity in the next 12 months. We know those were massive. We know Parkside's going to be massive on 53. And you had quoted, let me quote you, these were master plan developments and the county is no longer granting these. It's frozen its issuance of sewer capacity for residential development. I guess that's in the now, right now. And then later you said the county during that period of master plan development, which I call this in the future, a master plan development, sold sewer capacity it didn't have. And Danielle said that Calls Creek water treatment is under construction to go to 3 million a day to add extra capacity. So those were the points as a citizen I wanted you to be aware of. The more I'm listening now, I feel like I understand he wants to get his property zoned in order for his investments, but I just wanted to give you my point of view. Thank you.
Pam?
Good evening. I'm Pam Hendricks. I'm a resident of Oconee, live at 1151 Thornwood Drive. I guess I want to take a more theoretical approach tonight. I was in law school at Duke University back in the late 80s, early 90s. Zoning was brand new at that time. It was it was the class that everybody wanted to take. It was the new area of law. And something that we all need to remember, it hasn't always been this way. There hasn't always been zoning. Back when I was in law school, thought it sounded like an incredibly good idea. And I was all for it. But now, fast forward 30 years, what I've seen is something different. I have seen that the average Joe Blow, they know what their property's zoned and they agree to that. They abide by it. But the rich, the sophisticated, they know that they just go in and ask for a change of the zoning. And anytime you up the zoning or increase the density of zoning, you're really padding your own pocket. You're really knowing that, the smaller tract you can build on, the more it's worth. The more the big tract is worth. It's about money, and this is about development. And I just want to say, we're dealing with a very sophisticated owner right here. This was the owner of Zaxby's. He marketed that restaurant chain to, sold it to a hedge fund or private equity or something. I mean, the way I look at this 10-year proposal is that gives him 10 years to market this property and he'll be marketing it nationally, internationally, whatever, to the highest dollar. And he's already going to have the zoning in place. A lot of times when developers come in, they have to try to get the rezoning. So, and then the other thing that I just want you to think about is we're talking density. It's density, density, density. And I go back to remembering some people had signs that said, "Don't Gwinnett our Oconee." And I recently have been going up to Atlanta about once a day. I had a friend that was in a terrible car wreck and she's a quadriplegic, and I've been going up to help her. And I'm going up to Atlanta. And I just can't tell you how every time I go, I'm thinking, oh, I'm so glad that I live in Oconee County. But we are going to let ourselves do that. And we have these systems in place. We have zoning in place and we have a comprehensive use plan. It would be my thinking, if I were Mr. Townley, that he could be trying to influence the next comprehensive use plan. I mean, that's going to come up again within 10 years. And he just ought to have to go through the process, not get this pre-zoning. And like I said, I just feel like that's 10-year thing is odd to me. It just, to me, is that it gives him 10 years. As they said, they're thinking about estate planning and that kind of thing to market it to the highest buyer. And I will encourage you, I've been going out to, what's it, I think Westwood or whatever it's called off of 78. You know, that's a DR Horton community. I cannot believe we're allowing that in Oconee. It's a tragedy. And, you know, there's one right over in Barrow, and I was like, oh, see, Barrow has them. And then suddenly here we are in Oconee. We made a big mistake, and it was before I came to Oconee. I think it was back in 2004, 2006, when y'all got way excited about growth and did all those PUDs that have come back to haunt you. And we've got water issues, we've got sewer issues. I just ask you, please consider that the Planning Commission has already considered this and chose to reject it. And I ask you to reject it too. Thank you.
Does anyone else wish to speak against? Carter, you got 2 minutes and 34 seconds for rebuttal.
I'll just mention just a couple of things. Number one, this is a 2-acre minimum lot size. And so these are not small lots. 2 acres are, so when it comes to looking at properties in some surrounding counties, yes, they're building on a lot smaller lots than 2 acres. I think, and Mr. Herring can speak to this better than I can, I think, but I think some of the thought process in doing this 10-year moratorium is to allow the lots that are currently on record to draw down. And so it's not as if all these are going to be built at the same time. And I guess the only other thing I'd bring up is we're not asking for any variances. We're not asking for any variant from the rules. We're following everything in the comprehensive plan. We're following everything in the Unified Development Code of Oconee County here. So thank you very much.
With that, we'll go ahead and close public comments. Open up to any questions from commissioners.
I'll start. Let me say this for the record. I wasn't born or raised in North Georgia. I was born in West Georgia over in Troup County, and I was raised in Glenn County. I'll leave it at that because there are some major differences from the county I grew up in Oconee County. I don't care anything about the revenue. I don't get anything from that. Any rezone, we don't get paid because of that. It's just part of the job you have to do. So let it be known, we're not taking money from Mr. Townley, if that's what you're hinting at. So, but let me say this, if we turn this down, how many lots does he have available tomorrow to start pulling permits?
Probably around 80 lots by right under his current zoning. Because in the UDC, you're allowed to build a major subdivision with 5-acre minimum lots in the AG zoning district. So that portion of the property that's proposed for rezone that's AG could have any number of lots as long as that they each had 5 acres. And then there's the portion that's already zoned AR, which he could have 2-acre lots there. So just a rough estimate without engineering and septic and all that, probably around 80 lots as it stands in zone now.
So we're really talking about 8 lots.
Well,
If 88 could be.
Total of 120, so you're looking at another roughly 40 lots, something.
Okay, so 80 lots, he's available to start pulling the permits tomorrow. So what we're getting is a 10-year stoppage on pulling permits.
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's all I got right now.
Guy, while you're still up there, I didn't hear the way Chuck heard it. I thought he was talking about the coffers of the county would get money, not the commissioners, no.
I didn't hear conference. I heard it, y'all.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna believe that she was talking about the county coffers and not your wallet.
I've never been an advocate of more houses, so.
I understand that, but my question is, as far as the conservation designation, it stays until when?
Till the use changes. Yes, sir. You're correct.
So it will stay in the conservation use for the next 10 years.
That's my understanding. Yes.
So the county will not realize any increased revenues from those property taxes
Until that use changes. Yes.
until the use changes. Okay. I have a question for Mr. Carter, because I was curious too, when I first read that about the estimated value of these homes. Who came up with that? Or how was that determined?
I can, there's not a ton of work that went into that. It is purely looking around at what the homes values are, and projecting that out. Because originally we suggested, or we asked for a 5-year moratorium, because in talking with staff, we felt like that, a time frame to allow these lots to draw down was quite honestly a good idea. So, the home values, I live in that area. I've seen the home values. I know what they are. In 5 years, if you keep growing at the same rate, or now it's 10 years, I mean, that's what they're going to be. So there's, other than that, there's not a whole lot of, time and effort in figuring that out.
So what those, the pretty pictures that you had in there of the houses, what size square footage of those are depicted in your presentation?
I don't believe it says a size. I think those are 4 to 5 bedroom homes. I don't know the square foot size. I mean, we may have a minimum in the petition. I don't recall, but we may have a minimum in there. Because we don't want to go for a minimum of a certain size and then have to go under that. And so typically we just put a minimum home square footage on there. But they're always more than that, 2,500.
It's 2,500 and up.
Is that going to be in the covenants, or is that just the presentation, the 2,500?
The 2,500 minimum is a matter of this zoning case in this report, so we're bound by that. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
I've got one more thing to say. As far as the high density housing that's been mentioned, Westland and Parkside, I've been doing this since 2005, I think it was. I started. That was done prior to me coming on the board. Nobody else ever had anything to do with any of that rezone. So I can tell you, Jim Luke and I both fought against those MPDs when we got on the commission and killed it. You hadn't seen any more MPDs. That's because Jim and I fought that, got the county commission to agree. And I think there's probably some people in the room that remember that. But we have no desire to have any MPDs, not supporting it. Nobody's going to get them. So let me make sure that's said. Some of us that have been around long remember that. Some of you that have come later, you don't know anything about that, but we're not advocates of MPDs or high density housing. We spent over $180,000 fighting those developers to get a better deal out of Parkside and Westland. Some of you probably don't remember that, but that was a long lawsuit issue. So I don't think there's anybody up here who is advocating high density housing, more housing into Oconee County just to have housing. That's not the case, because it all impacts the schools. We're not advocates of high growth. So I just want that for the record.
I was gonna mention the same thing, so the other thing I'd say is zoning in Oconee County came about in 1968. So we were well ahead of the curve in bringing in zoning. Our comprehensive map that was created in 1968 it's changed very little up to this last thing we went through. So it's been very consistent over the last 50 years. I do have a question for Guy on the 2 condition changes. Is staff okay with those
Yes, sir.
amendments?
Staff is okay with the presented changes by the applicant.
Any other questions?
I've got one question for Guy, just curious, the 10 years, I appreciate that, condition in there. Is that something that we can kind of draw a line in the sand for going future forward with other people that might want to come in to do this type of development, this size?
I believe it's an option for us to use, and we base it on, and I think you guys are familiar, but there's we do a draw-down map essentially for the Board of Education. So we show them, periodically every year how many lots have been taken off of a total count of lots, and we're roughly around 2,000 lots zoned in both high school districts cumulatively. As a total. And thus, we do about 200 single-family permits every year, thus the 10 years. So that was our rationale behind that, and thankfully the applicant was supportive of that.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from commissioners? We'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve rezone P24-0217 with the additional comments that was made by the presenter.
We have a motion and a second to approve rezone request P 24-0217 as 7 conditions, conditions 5 and 6 as presented with the changes tonight. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries. Next item is special use P 24-0216. This is Prince Avenue Baptist Church, expansion of a church and school campus, 74.41 acres at 2201 Ruth Jackson Road.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Again, this is special use P 24-0216, Prince Avenue Baptist Church. This is located along Monroe Highway, Highway 78. It's parcel B02012BC. This is currently zoned AG in the community village character area. And the applicant is requesting a change in conditions of the previously approved special use P 23-0116 to construct a 60,000 square foot event facility with 531 parking spaces. This is the recorded plat you have in your application packet, the concept plan, a slightly larger version showing the proposed parking spaces and proposed building. These are the architectural images submitted with the application, the site picture. And staff recommends conditional approval with our 3 standard conditions. Number 4, a traffic impact study shall be conducted and submitted for review according to UDC standards prior to submission of the preliminary or site development plan. The Planning Commission recommended approval with one change to number 4. A traffic study impact shall be conducted and submitted for review according to the UDC standards prior to submission of the preliminary or site development plan for the proposed building. Staff is okay with this proposed amendment by the Planning Commission. Thank you.
Now we'll hear from the owner or the agent of the owner.
Good evening. I'm Jeff Carter with Carter Engineering Consultants, 1010 Commerce Drive in Bogart. Mr. Tim Luke is the executive pastor sitting in the back of Prince Avenue Baptist Church, and he's here to try to answer any questions or shed some light on maybe something that I missed. But Prince Avenue's done a wonderful job of reaching the community. They are growing on their campus. It is in a zoning designation that pretty much anything they do, they've got to come to you guys to get a special use permit. And this has gone on for, as you know, every year or so we're here to ask for a special use. Just wanted to briefly orient you on where this request is. This is Highway 78 here. This is Ruth Jackson Road here. This is an existing residential subdivision. What we're asking to do, the subject of this special use permit, is this parking lot here and this building kind of shown in the orange color there. And so all of the property here is undeveloped property. There's no houses here, so there's nothing close to this development. This is just a amplified or scaled up drawing of what we're looking at. We are wanting an additional access point from Highway 78 and some interconnectivity here with the existing parking lot. This is the existing, I call it like the main building, the worship center. And so this building, future building, will be located right here. And so it just gives you an idea of what we are trying to do, what the church is trying to do there. One thing I wanted to point out on the staff recommendations, one of the reasons this is really important, and Guy's already mentioned this, so I won't go through it, but really the reason this is important for the church is that there is a good chance they may want to put some more parking in before they build that building. So the building is kind of a little bit further out into the future. They may want to add some parking as they go along because parking is always a need. And changing this recommendation will allow them to put parking in and not have to spend the money to do a traffic study because it would be just parking for the existing people that go to church there. So hope that makes sense. I'll be glad to try to clarify that if needed, but that's really important for the church. So be glad to try to answer any questions, or Mr. Luke is here as well. So thank you for your consideration.
Does anyone else wish to speak for the special use? Does anyone wish to speak against? With that, we'll go ahead and close public comment. Any questions for commissioners?
I was gonna ask Guy, are you all right with the revision on the traffic study?
Yes, sir.
And was that an item 4 or that was item 4, wasn't it?
I believe it was
Condition.
item 4.
Okay, thank you.
No other questions, we'll entertain a motion.
I make a motion, we approve special use P 24-0216 Prince Avenue Baptist Church, expansion of a church and school campus, 74.41 acres, 2201 Ruth Jackson Road, church and school campus with the 4 conditions with changes.
Second. We have a motion and a second to approve special use P 24-0216 with the 4 conditions and condition number 4 as presented tonight. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries. Next item will be special use P 24-0210. This is the Dixon Family Trust of 2012 recreational camps rentals. This is 356.05 acres at 6011 Hog Mountain Road and 1170 Lane Creek Road. There's also a variance number P 24-0211 for the same property.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Again, this is special use P 24-0210 Dixon Family Trust. This is parcel A03003 and A02032. It is currently zoned AG in the country estates and suburban neighborhood character areas. And the applicant is requesting special use approval for recreational overnight camps with the construction of 10 recreational cabins for overnight rentals, along with converting an existing dwelling to use for an overnight rental. This is the recorded plats in your application packet. The concept plan showing the location of the proposed project. Architectural images submitted with the application. Staff recommends conditional approval with our 3 standard conditions. Number 4, the preliminary and site development plan shall indicate a 50-foot buffer along all property lines adjacent to existing residential uses, adjacent to areas that propose a commercial use in accordance with table 8.1. And number 5, there shall be no outdoor amplified music after 9 p.m. Number 6, all existing and proposed commercial drives on the property shall be constructed to meet fire codes capable of supporting the imposed load of fire apparatus weighing up to 75,000 pounds. The Planning Commission recommended approval with 2 changes. Number 4, the preliminary and site development plan shall indicate a 75-foot natural buffer along all property lines adjacent to existing residential uses, adjacent for areas that propose a commercial use in accordance with table 8.1. And number 7, the fire pit shall be located in the central point of the project.
Now we'll hear from the owner or the agent of the owner.
Good evening, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. I'm Mick Kittle with SPG Planners and Engineers, 1725 Electric Avenue. So first, I want to just begin by presenting the overall map of the Dixon Hedges property. It's approximately 470 to 475 acres. The property abuts Hog Mountain Road, Moores Ford Road, Lane Creek Road. So both the Dixon and Hedges families live on the property and have spent decades preserving the beauty, just really enjoying what it offers and keeping it well maintained. The goal of the special use is to allow the construction of a small recreational overnight cabin community that aligns with the area's heritage of low-impact development, meets current zoning requirements, and enhances the local economy by attracting light tourism. The focus area for the cabin area is the highlighted yellow. So this is approximately 20 acres, and it's closer to Hog Mountain Road on the north there. This offers convenient access to local and regional amenities such as golf, state parks, fishing, shopping, dining, as well as a lodging option for the many nearby event spaces. So this is a zoomed-in illustrative of the overall concept plan, and I just want to highlight the red circles here represent a 500-foot radius from the central point of the closest cabins to adjacent property, just to give you an idea of scale and location where these are centralized into the property. They will be nestled in the center of the property, overlooking an existing pond. The cabins have been thoughtfully located to blend in with the natural landscape and provide a luxurious, sustainable accommodation option for visitors. The existing house, which is here, the pole barn, a garage, and a shed are expected to remain. There's an existing shed on the adjacent, or on the edge of the adjacent property that is actually expected to be removed. Guest and emergency access will be provided from Lane Creek Drive. So currently there's an existing driveway that goes into the property. What we're proposing is to improve that to meet fire standards and then create a connection up to another existing drive that goes into the site. So pretty minimal impact, but it does give the opportunity for fire service to have a turnaround. So we've provided that here. And for, guest parking, which would be adjacent to each cabin, you're going to have approximately 2 spaces per cabin plus a designated ADA cabin with ADA parking as well. There's a common lawn, which is essentially on the northwest here, that will have a communal fire pit, which we've now located more central to the site, away from adjacent properties. Walking trails and a grilling area for guests to enjoy. Quiet hours will follow the UDC requirements of 11 to 7 a.m. with no amplified music past 9. The traffic, we used the ITE manual 11th edition, should generate approximately 39 daily trips, which is less than 1% of an increase to the 7,000 daily trips at the intersection of Hog Mountain and Lane Creek. This is precedent imagery just to get a better look and feel for the cabins. Each cabin should be approximately 1,000 square feet and include 1 to 2 bedrooms, a bathroom, a small kitchen, a porch overlooking the pond, and a small living room. The rental rates are projected to be around $700 to $1,000 a night, depending on market conditions. So really a higher end product. The boundary along existing parcels, so there are existing residences here, will contain a 75-foot vegetated and natural buffer as recommended by Planning Commission. The buffer shall be made up of existing and supplemental vegetation, specifically evergreen trees and shrubs, to ensure a vegetative screen year-round. So this exhibit demonstrates, the combination of existing landscape plus what we're proposing, up to 6-foot high shrubs at maturity and a dense pocket of evergreen trees. these photos represent the existing conditions. So you can see there is existing forest. Some of the newer homes where the land has been cleared will need to screen better, and, we're willing to do that. And there's also some new plantings on their end as well. So definitely agree to the 75-foot buffer. We think, that makes sense and are happy to do so. So, we understand the importance of preserving the environment. Our construction plans will follow environmental guidelines to minimize impact on local wildlife and vegetation. We will employ best practices for stormwater management, erosion control, and wastewater. We're here today to seek Board of Commissioners approval to move forward with the final design, permitting, and construction phases of the project. We look forward to addressing any questions or concerns and you may have in working together to ensure the successful realization of this project. I appreciate your time. I'm joined by Tracy Hedges, who would like to speak as well on behalf of the project. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Tracy Dixon Hedges. I am one of the family members. And my husband and I actually, we did move over here to on the property. We lived in Somerset subdivision for 15 years, but about a few years ago, we did move over. So we are on property. My dad bought this property 50 years ago. So it's been in our family for over 50 years. He is now homebound and is not well. So we, like the Townleys, have been thinking long-term. What do we do? My brother, I have one sibling, and he lives in Atlanta, so it's me. So we have begun thinking of, what do we do with 470 acres? This particular parcel here, just to give you an idea, is Dad did not own this in the beginning. I don't know if y'all remember the Fields. They were a family that lived here. When Mr. Fields got sick with cancer, he went on to live in a nursing home. Miss Fields came to my father and asked him to buy this property. She said, "Will you buy my house and my land? It butts up right next to yours." And at that time, and I think it was 07, 08, wasn't the time to be buying real estate that you didn't need, right? But he did, and he let Miss Fields live there, even though he bought it from her. And so I tell you that because this was not originally part of our big parcel, but part of what his wish for me is that I try not to sell any of the land. I don't want to do that, much like you. I want to preserve it. I want to do something that is, that, kind of gives back as much as we can. My parents are many of y'all know them, epitome of Southern hospitality. And you also know on this property, we have done so many events and so many for Boys and Girls Club, UNG, Piedmont. When Caterpillar came, we threw the welcome party, welcome to the neighborhood party out here. And that's what we wanted to continue to do. So I have got to think, though, of ways to create a little revenue. And side note, I'm in real estate. I work at Coldwell Banker Upchurch. So I buy and sell these $1 million houses. So it would be easy. And Dad's a developer. My brother's a developer. My husband's a builder. I'm in real estate. I know what I could build. I know what to do. But that's not what we want to do. We want to try to figure out something. We were thinking outside the box. What can we do that, helps create a little revenue so that we can hold on to all of the land. And also in ways to kind of give back so people could come and enjoy and still come to maybe things that we have or host and whatnot. So that's the thinking of what we let. I knew I couldn't do it. That's why I hired Smith Planning Group, who's been a dream. They have walked not only this parcel, but the whole 470 acres extensively. So they know and they get the vision. I've got some neighbors that I know are going to speak against. I get it. I have a neighbor that shoots guns 3 or 4 times a week right next to me. So I understand, you're concerned about what's going on. But I also, nobody has reached out to me to voice their concerns. So, let's figure out what those are. And I'm happy to figure out what would make everyone happy. I appreciate your consideration. If any questions, let me know. Thank you.
We'll move over to those who are signed up to speak against. Kyle, That, sir.
Good evening. I'm Kyle Setzer. I live at 6141 Hog Mountain Road. I have the 18 acre parcel that's adjacent to the main log cabin there, existing structure. As I voiced at the planning commission, right, I have 3 small children, so there's concerns there with overnight guests from outside of the county from a short-term, rental perspective of people who don't live here and have long-term investments, right? Like I have with my property, my kids going to Dove Creek in North Oconee eventually. That was my vision here when I bought the property, right, for what we're zoned. And yes, I like to shoot guns too and hunt. That's why I bought agricultural land, as well as my other neighbors. So my concern is the cabin community, right, that they mentioned. There is construction going on. There is density there with 11 cabins within 19 acres. That's why, right, for me and my personal and family reasons, let alone with the county, and does it truly fit that close to Hog Mountain and Lane Creek, given like the map shown on previous applications here for rezoning. Outside of that, I think the most important part that I want to mention is with the recommendations on the buffer. We were definitely a fan of the increase of that, right? Because of density of you have 11 cabins or 2 or 3 bedrooms there, potentially 40, 50 guests overnight would be from a natural to a planted, right? We saw different really good, examples of that from the Townley project of, 4-foot soil berms, 6-foot high evergreens, that thick density. As you could see with the natural vegetation, there's not a lot. Most of those other trees on that side is on my property. My neighbor has some, right, on the 2 acres I'm above where the common lawn is. There's nothing there, right? It's an open field. So that will be noisy, right? We all know that it's an open field. You can tell from sound tests, whether if you're a sound engineer or not, but that's a concern, right? Is the sound right there, impact of high density there. Is this also in continuation with the other variants on the gravel? Is that this opportunity to speak, or is that another one?
That'll be a different.
A different one? Okay, all right, I'll come back to for that one. But that's really for me and my concern is my family, long-term guest here. I'm not opposed to residential housing on 5 acres on agriculture or where we're at, because I know those people are invested in the community. Short-term guests are not invested in the community, whether they're from Atlanta or Gwinnett. I traveled a few years ago with some college buddies, probably 20 years ago now, but I think I paid $500 a night at Town Square. I don't know if I would pay $700 to come. No offense, I love this county, but $1,000 a night's that's a little rich, from local areas. But hey, if you can get it, you can get it. Maybe I'm doing something wrong. I don't know, but that's really all I got to say. Is I look at my family there. I have kids, I have dogs, I have chickens, I have everything out there. That's why I live in agricultural land. So I appreciate your consideration.
Dennis Zulo.
Good evening. I've never done this before, so this is very new to me. I bought this house that I live in at 6091 Hog Mountain Road. I bought this house about 6 months ago. I knew there was a house behind me. I was told that there was an elderly gentleman that lived there. We've done a ton of work to this house to beautify it, to make it what we expected it to be. I didn't expect to have a business behind it. Makes me feel a little uncomfortable with it, to be honest with you. I don't have problems with people owning a business, creating revenue, doing everything. I own short-term property myself and got out of it a couple years ago. But I also know what they do and how they act. Wedding venue, I don't know if you've been to a wedding before or not. I know what some of my friends look like after a wedding, and being behind my house is usually not a pretty sight. I have pictures, and I didn't know that I had to submit this to you, showing how close this house is to my house. And I just put a pool in. I'm gonna have my wife, my grandkids out yard, and I'm gonna have a bunch of people out there that I don't know. And I'm not telling you to decline it. I'm not telling you not to accept their offer. I'm saying if you decline it, great. If you don't, I need something covering that up so my wife can go out to the pool that we just spent quite a bit of money on. Haven't been able to use it yet because they finished it up, of course, in the beginning of winter. But I want her to feel comfortable. Instead of 20, 30 strangers in the backyard on a weekend getting ready to go to a wedding or go to a hunt, or they have 475 acres. It'd be great if they could do it a different place. Pretty much all I got.
Susanna?
I just had a question. I know this is a special use. With this, does this come a limit to how long these people can stay in these cabins, or what dictates that? The owner? Because if you've got,
We have to take any of your comments you want to make.
okay. Let me first say that looking at that rendering, it looks like a campground. I'm a member of a campground. It looks just like it. I mean, that is what this looks like, except instead of campers or trailers, it's tiny homes. So, I mean, that is my concern, is that this could very easily turn into a campground like the one in Bishop, or like many campgrounds, which are essentially density housing that bring in transient people and weekend renters. And I think people who live around that area do not want that, as the other gentleman mentioned. I think, to say we're going to rent this for $750 to $1,000 a night, I think that's ideal. But I think we all know how this goes. Many of us own rental properties, and you can't necessarily rent them at that price. So you have to rent them for whatever the market will bear. And I think that 750, I don't know where that number came from, but I think that's extremely high. And I think this could easily turn into, once they invest money in these cabins, the rent comes down until they can rent them. And next thing you know, you've got people coming and going at whatever rent will sell the property. So, I mean, to say we're going to do it as a high-end high-end Airbnb, that's there's no guarantee that that's going to happen. Not to mention, this sets a precedent. Is this what we want in our community? Because like I said, it looks like a campground. That the gentleman who just spoke up earlier, I guess he could do that too. And what about me and anybody else who's got some land? Why not? I mean, we'd all love to, generate some income off of our land that's just sitting there. So that's my concern, is I think it's being presented one way, and I'm not so sure that that's the way it's going to end in the long term, in reality. So, I mean, I'm hoping that you vote against it. Thank you so much.
Ma'am?
Once again, Pam Hendricks. I think this is scary because the word is precedent. It sets a precedent. I wrote down as I was listening, if you can't beat them, join them. I'm thinking the gentleman with the 17-acre parcel, let's just let him build some tiny houses. Let's just have a whole section of the county for tiny houses. And part of my reason for being a little bit worried about this is I own a house near Pine Lake Campground. And overnight, that place, I still don't quite know how it happened. I'm still kind of looking into it. It doubled in size. And, there's rules in there, because I've asked about it, about no camper, no RV is supposed to stay, I think it's longer than 90 days. Well, I've been out there, they have permanent fencing around some of those. So, and I was told that unless I complain, the county's not going to investigate. Well, I don't want to be a bad person and complain. And so it's just happening. So that's the kind of thing that, I'm like Susanna. I mean, this looks like a campground, if that's what we want in Oconee County. But man, I've got some land. Maybe that's what I want to do on mine. How are we going to allow this one and not allow more? It's precedent. It's density. The Pine Lake Campground, I would argue, is the most densely populated part of Oconee County. And this will start it up there around this land, because I mean, if you're going to allow one, please let everybody. I'm into freedom. I'm into letting people do what they want with their land. So, I mean, let's just let everybody build some tiny houses. I think we need, frankly, more of them. I don't think we need these big mansions everywhere. So maybe this is what y'all want for Oconee, but please think about it. Precedent density.
That's all we have signed up to speak against. Is there any rebuttal from the?
Yes, thanks again. I just want to make clarification on the buffer, that we're not leaving it just as it is. We have committed to planting as needed wherever it's thin. So we are committed to filling that in, so you have a year-round vegetative screen. And the client's willing to do that, plant evergreen trees, as I said before, to even evergreen shrubs. We're willing to plant those to be 6 foot at maturity. So there will be, you think 75 feet. The previous project was doing 15 feet on a neighborhood. So we're doing 75, much thicker than that, and with hopes to screen the neighbors, and keep our project buffered as best we can. And the second part is the existing cabin. Yes, that is near the adjacent property. That is an existing home. The cabins that we're proposing are beyond the lake. So basically on the south side of this 19-acre parcel. I believe they are more than 800 feet to 1,000 feet from those homes. So with the screen, the elevation, it's really going to be difficult for those neighbors to see these cabins from their backyard. Regarding, the use, can everybody do this? I mean, this is a special use. It is part of the zoning that we are in. And, that is an opportunity. That's why zoning's there. So if people do want to present something with their property, they have the right to do that. And that's why we're here. So, thank you.
With that, we'll go ahead and close public comment. Any questions from commissioners?
Yeah. Ms. Dixon, if you don't mind, did you speak with the neighbors before
And
we got?
I'm glad you asked, because the neighbor, and I don't know if y'all have the letters from my neighbors that did submit letters. They went to the planning. I wasn't sure if you would get them. The neighbor directly in front of the cabin that is already there, which my father-in-law lived in, and he passed away last year, which is why we started thinking what to do with this parcel. They wrote a letter for this. They know, I mean, and they are, I wish on the map we could show you, they are the ones directly in front, and they would be the closest to these cabins. And they wrote a letter for us along with 2 other neighbors off of Lane Creek, because they know what we will build. These are not going to be, and I want to make one other comment. This also came about because after I started looking, yeah, we're within 3 miles of like 6 wedding venues. So yes, there will be weddings. One of my church friends called and asked if we had anything for rent, because they were having their wedding at Vintage Oaks Farms, which is right, next door. So yeah, I anticipate some people would stay there for weddings, but I also see like women's retreats, which I have very often, church events, family reunions, high school reunions, that kind of thing is kind of what we're after. But I'm sorry, but Chuck, back to your question. Yes, the neighbor directly in front, they are fully aware. They've seen the plans. They wrote a letter in support.
Thank you, ma'am.
Guy, could you come up and pull up the site plan as far as the buffer is concerned? The gentleman had talked about what they planning to do.
Let's pull up their presentation, I believe, please. So this is what the applicant has presented as the 75-foot planted buffer. So those would be existing overstory trees, and there will be additional plantings within that 75-foot to make an opaque screen.
All right, that photograph at the bottom, whose house is that?
I do not know.
Yes.
So what they have depicted up there with that, where is that house in relation? to the-
I believe it's in this area. Sorry, this area. So this area, this planted buffer will be required along this property line.
That would be, that's a requirement, not an option.
That's right, yes, sir.
Okay. All right, thank you. Oh, I do have one other question as far as the comment about, when I hear Airbnb, it kind of pops up. What's the special reuse? Are there any expectations as far as limits on how long someone can stay there?
It will be managed as a overnight stay, similar to a hotel. So the hotel motel tax would apply, and it would be managed as a hotel type would be.
All right, so how often is that reviewed by the staff of the county?
On a complaint basis.
Okay. But the hotel motel tax,
Would be submitted to finance.
okay, thank you.
There's no limit in the code on number of nights to stay. Is that what you're saying?
Right, that's right.
Tracy, would y'all come up? On addressing the concern about having somebody stay 30 days or 2 weeks, what's your estimated amount of time staying, and would that be a condition you're willing to accept on the?
Yeah, I mean, honestly have not thought about, I couldn't see anybody staying for 30 days, but if that needs to be a condition, yeah, we're fine with that.
Any other questions from commissioners? How many conditions were on this? 7? 6?
There were some additions by the planning commission.
That's counting. Yes, that's correct. So total of 7. Any other questions from commissioners? Entertain a motion for special use P24-0210.
Mr. Chairman, I'd be glad to make a motion to approve special use P24-0210 for the Dixon Family Trust, recreation overnight camps, rental cabins, 6011 Hog Mountain Road and 1170 Lane Creek Road, with the 7 conditions presented, with an additional condition to require no more than 30 days overnight stay. Is that appropriate? Okay. So that'd be a total of 8 conditions.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for approval of special use P24-0210 with 8 conditions. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Now we'll move to variance request P24-0211.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. This is P24-0211 Dixon Family Trust applicant owner. Again, this is parcel A03003, A02032. It's currently zoned AG in the Country Estates and Suburban Neighborhood Character Area. And the special exception variance request is from section 609.1 of the UDC. Number 1 is to allow a portion of an existing residential drive, gravel drive, to remain as a service drive and remove the requirement for a paved commercial drive. Number two, remove the requirement for curb and gutter to allow the commercial access road to have vegetated ditches. And number three, allow gravel parking in lieu of paved parking for the spaces next to the rental units. Again, the recorded plats you have in your application packets and the concept plan. And the variance to the gravel road, the existing gravel road that comes in from Highway 53, Hog Mountain is what they're requesting to allow to remain gravel and be unpaved. And in lieu of that, they would use this paved driveway as previously discussed for fire apparatus. Staff believes that for expediency, both need to be provided for public safety. So staff recommends denial on that part. The portion of the gravel drive would need to be improved to provide paved commercial access for life safety. But the other two requests to remove the requirement for curb and gutter to allow the commercial access road to have vegetated ditches, staff recommends approval, and allow gravel parking in lieu of paved parking for the spaces next to the rental units. Staff also recommends approval for those two. And with that approval, should the present request be approved, our three standard conditions would apply.
Now we'll hear from the owner. Dick.
Hello again, Mick Kittle, SPG Planners and Engineers, 1725 Electric Avenue. I just want to run through essentially what Guy was saying, with the first variance request. There's an existing gravel drive off of Lane Creek, off of Hog Mountain Road that enters the property and accesses the existing home. The road shown here does not exist, so that's proposed connection to the existing driveway along the southern portion, which connects to Lane Creek. We are proposing a variance to let this portion of the road remain as gravel and to be only used by the owner. This would prevent traffic collection off of Highway 53 and essentially pull everyone off of Lane Creek Drive. Again, the traffic count that we calculated was fairly minimal, approximately 39 trips a day. So there's really not, in my opinion, a need to have two access points. And then the photos show the existing drive in its current state today. So we would request to have that remain just for owner access. The second portion of the variance request is to allow a gravel or similar type material for the non-ADA parking spaces. This would be the equivalent of a chip and seal. So it's not necessarily the loose gravel. You still have a binding agent to it. It compacts. It's just not fully paved. We feel like this gives it a better look and feel, for the natural environment that we're trying to build these cabins into, and allow a less commercialized or intense look for parking, almost to feel as though you're at a state park. That's really the vibe we're going for, and want the community to have that feel, which leads to the third portion of the variance to remove the requirement for curb and gutter on the paved portion of the drive. This is a precedent image on the top right that shows what we're aiming for. Stormwater would be handled with swales and overland flow. There's minimal impact happening on the 19-acre site, and in preliminary engineering, it works well just to have it with swales and overland flow. We still feel, this would meet the fire requirements. We've discussed this with fire, and as long as we can support the 75,000-pound load, they're okay with this approach. So we ask for your review and approval of these variances. Thank you.
Does anyone else wish to speak for the variance request? Move over to those speaking against. Kyle?
I had some letters from our neighbors next to us that I also submitted, but we're past that now. As far as this goes for curb and gutter, I know y'all don't see it, but on the map, that creek back there that I own on the other portion, that ravine back there is probably 10 to 12 feet deep. I don't allow my kids to go down there normally on certain sections because of how steep it is. It's hilly where those cabins are going, and road on some of that is. There will definitely be erosion, I promise you, because I already have it now and I can see it and from the creek in the 4 years that I've owned that property myself. So my fear is the consistent traffic. I have a gravel driveway at the front. I have constant people turning around for some reason on mine too. I have to constantly replace my gravel. I do 57 stone. But for me, it's the water and the erosion. You have septics on one of those tanks that you just approved within 50 feet of that creek as well that will be eroding into that. So that is a concern. So I would definitely look at that as far as water control. It's not flat. It's absolutely hilly. 75,000 pounds fire truck on both accesses. That was one of my main concerns with the whole project is the main access off of 53. I live there. I see the traffic. I know every day, just like my neighbor. There's a lot more than what you think, from a turnaround perspective and traffic flow. It was originally just a service, I think. So if it's just going to be owner access, all right. I mean, we'll take that for sure. I think like you mentioned, it's already paved on the one section. Really, I guess just the standard of that continued. If you're going to keep a higher scale and try to get that 750 to 1,000 a night, I'd imagine that you should be able to have the funds to keep it at that scale, right, as well. But definitely on erosion because it is absolutely hilly. I don't know if you've looked at the topography graph map of that, but it definitely is. My creek, like I said, is over 12 feet deep on each side. It's very hilly on that. So that would be my concern for that.
Dennis? Anyone else wish to speak against? Go ahead and close public comments and open up to any questions from commissioners.
I got one. Yeah. Did anybody from fire services talk with you?
We had discussed it internally, but I believe that they were told that one access would be required to support the fire truck. Our concern is that the quickest route may be Hog Mountain as opposed to Lane Creek.
Well, that's my point.
Yeah.
Are we telling in this that fire department has to come in from Lane Creek?
Yes, but essentially, yes.
What if they're coming and they have to cross Bars Hill? They're closed. That's my point.
Right. Yes, sir.
Okay, that's all.
Can you speak to the terrain that
And I believe you have in your packets. I don't have it pulled up, but there is significant topo on the property. It's 400 acres. You're going to have some, but certainly through the development process, those will be managed.
Yeah. So with the curb and gutter, would that be catch basins and everything else, or just the curb and gutter?
Well, as they're proposing and staff's recommending approval of that, it would be ditch and swale section.
Okay.
Excuse me too. I said Mars Hill, but I meant.
Any other questions from commissioners? Will entertain a motion.
I do have one more
Okay.
question. This is maybe a question for Mr. Kittle. As far as the, talking about the access off of Hog Mountain Road, it's not a gate, it's not gonna be up there on, is it?
There's currently not a gate there, no.
Okay, so there's no plan for a gate there at all or any,
I think the owner would be able to respond to that, but I don't see that being an issue. A gate would prevent guests from using that, but it would also cause, turnaround should they pull in and then realize they can't go. Signage would also be helpful, but, if that's a suggestion, I think the owner could respond to that as an option or a condition of approval.
so it's in advertising these cabins, the Lane Creek address will be used.
Correct.
I'm sorry? Oh. Okay.
But you would not want to keep that open or closed. Yeah.
They
That
just
gate would-
run over the fence.
Right.
That's what they do. But what the point here for me, and I don't want to get in front of him, but got two axes
Mm-hmm.
trying to block one, keep the fire department out, or ambulance, something like that. They make a mistake.
Yeah.
That
Understood.
Thank
you. Thanks.
Yeah, can you go over the staff recommendation?
Can you put that back up?
Any staff recommendations? Thank you. So staff is recommending approval of the removal of the requirement for curb and gutter along the commercial access drive, so it'd be ditch and swale, and allow gravel parking at the rental units, but would be recommending denial of the gravel drive to remain as a service drive. It would need to be paved such to meet commercial standards and to support a fire truck to that 75,000 pounds, along with our 3 standard conditions.
I may offer a motion, Mr. Chairman, to make a motion to align our approval with the staff's recommendation on the 2, and also deny the request for the, to leave that existing drive as gravel
3 conditions.
with the 3 conditions.
I'll second that.
We have a motion, variance P 24-0211, accept staff recommendation for denial of the gravel driveway from 53 and 3 conditions. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries. Next item is variance request P 24-0226. This is Burgess Jennings Mill LLC and J.G. Griffith Investments LLC. Request is to allow an installation of a 6-foot-high decorative metal picket fence and a 3-foot-high rather than 6-foot hedge wall or imitation wood vinyl fence. It's 1.47 acres at 1100 Research Parkway.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. This is variance P 24-0226, Burgess Jennings Mill Land LLC, applicant owner. It's parcel C01AV 007. It's currently zoned B2 in the Regional Center Character Area. And a special exception variance from the UDC section, Article 3, Section 323.02 to allow the installation of a 6-foot-high decorative metal picket fence and 3-foot-high hedge rather than the 6-foot-high hedge wall imitation wood vinyl fence that's required by the code. This is the recorded plat you have in your application. The concept plan, a slightly larger version showing the location of the fence surrounding the subject property. These are the concept plans, details of the fence that were submitted with the application, architectural renderings of the proposed fence, and construction standards for the fence. And staff recommends conditional approval with our 3 standard conditions. Thank you.
I'll hear from the owner or the agent of those.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. My name is Ken Bell and Company, and we prepared the documents that you'll be acting on this evening. It's a pretty straightforward request. The Goddard School, they have developed over 600 campuses across the country. This will be the first in this vicinity. And they pretty much have used the same fence on just about all of those that they built within the last 10 or 15 years. And so they wanted to stay with something that has proven to be effective and attractive. So what we're really asking to do is replace what would be a less expensive fence with a more expensive fence, but one that you can actually see through instead of it being a privacy fence, which you cannot see through. So we qualify, we meet the criteria of the variance request. It's not to save money, it's just to go with something that has proven to be successful the way they build these particular types of private daycare and schools. Thank you.
Does anyone else wish to speak for the variance request? Does anyone wish to speak against? Yeah, we'll go ahead and close public comments. Any questions from commissioners?
Mr. Chairman, I just want, if I could ask Mr. Bailey, I'm missing something there. Is that the reason for that is for they don't want the privacy? Or they want people to be able to see into the help me understand their rationale.
Well, a privacy fence is what it is. And on these sites, there are fences that separate the uses of fences that wrap around the project that the children play in. And when it becomes a privacy fence, it feels smaller and it feels more claustrophobic. Whereas with an open fence, it is open. It's open where the public can see in. So I've asked several people why it is even in the code to be a privacy fence, and I really didn't get a good response or a good reason for why it's even in the code that way. And obviously it hasn't been a code issue in any of the hundreds of other projects that they've built.
So I didn't know if it was a matter of security or what, you know.
Well, there is a security component for sure, and that's why they prefer a metal fence instead of a privacy fence, a metal picket fence that you can see through.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions from commissioners? Ready for a motion?
I'll make a motion, we approve variance P 240226 Burgess Jennings Mill Land LLC and J.G. Griffith Investments LLC. Request to allow the installation of a 6-foot-high decorative metal picket fence and a 3-foot-high rather than 6-foot edge wall orientation wood vinyl fence, 1.47 acres, 1100 Research Parkway. With the 3 conditions.
Very good. We have a motion and a second to approve variance request P 24-0226 with 3 conditions. Any discussion? All in favor? Thank you. Motion carries. Next item is ratification of a waiver request from buffer requirements on Site Development Plan P 23-0174.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Quick Trip Corporation requests a waiver of the required 50-foot buffer between the proposed Quick Trip site Zone B2 at Veterans Memorial Parkway, parcels B06029 and B06029A. Adjacent property boundaries that are zoned AR Ag Residential. The UDC in Article 8 allows this waiver process by the board for areas that landscaping is provided on the development plan and is sufficient for the landscaping requirement. It's where adjacent property owners are not affected. QT owns the surrounding property. And then where the comprehensive plan map shows the adjoining properties are to be commercial in the future. And that is the case at this location. So based on the above findings and current proposed plan, staff recommends approval of the waiver to the required 50-foot incompatible use buffer between the proposed Quick Trip zoned B2 and adjoining property zoned AR. Thank you.
Do we have any public comment on this waiver request? Do we have any commissioner questions? We'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve the waiver request as presented.
We have a motion and a second to approve the waiver request. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries. The next item is discuss and consider the pay matrix adjustments effective for January 5th, 2025. So we're proposing making adjustments to the pay matrix entry level salaries for public safety grades 10 and above, which would be our patrol deputies, a $5,000 increase. That would put us above nearly every county that we're competing with around us that touches us. Will be below just one county by only about 600. For all the other grades in the public safety as well as non-public safety, there'll be a $2,500 increase in the base salary. And that, based on your years of service, that will increase up across the time. The cost of this will be about $555,000 budget year. And we do have the funds available to fund this and feel like we'll be in good shape for FY26 as well to carry that out till its completion. We are requesting approval of the changes to the pay matrix as well as the necessary budget amendments for FY25. Be happy to answer any questions. Do we have any public comment? I'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion, we approve the pay matrix adjustments effective January 5th, 2025 as submitted.
A motion second to approve the pay matrix and the budget amendments as requested. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries. Next time is discuss and consider the IT managed service provider RFP award. Justin.
Good evening, Commissioners and Chairman. We recently posted an RFP for a managed service provider, our current managed service provider being Athens Micro. We received an overwhelming response with 14 vendors submitting a proposal, and our evaluation team narrowed it down to a short list of 2. Ultimately, the evaluation team chose to recommend Athens Micro as the winner of the contract.
What is the dollar amount for the annual?
Oh, sure, yeah. So that would be, the new monthly rate would be $16,871. This is down from our current monthly rate of $17,310.50.
Same level of service?
Yes,
working.
identical. Mhm.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, Justin is correct. There's also 3 tiers offered, and should it be approved, I would task IT with evaluating what the additional services are. and making a recommendation going into fiscal year 26, whether there's a higher tier we wish to entertain or not. Same status.
Is this effective for next year or for right now?
This would be effective immediately upon approval.
So what tier is this one? Is tier one?
This is the first tier, which would be equal state to our current status.
And this is our standard one-year contract with 5 renewals? Renewals?
That is correct.
Any questions from commission? Do we have any public comment? We'll entertain a motion.
Second.
A motion second to award the IT managed service provider contract to Athens Micro at Tier 1 for FY 25. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries. Our next item is discuss and consider a budget amendment for FY 26 law enforcement vehicles. Alyssa?
Thank you, Chairman. Good evening. The Sheriff's Office has been presented with an offer from the Sheriff's Office Foundation to receive a donation that would support a purchase of an additional 2 vehicles for the Sheriff's Office in the current fiscal year, along with providing some of the equipment needed. Last discussed, this was an anticipated donation of $102,000. So I'm here this evening to request your approval of accepting the donation, which would require a revenue neutral budget amendment so that we could increase our revenue budget as well as the expenditure budget to make the purchases that the funds would be allocated for. So this would affect the FY 25 budget and the general fund.
Any questions from commissioners? Any public comment? We do appreciate the Sheriff's Foundation, everybody who donates to it, and this is big help for the Sheriff's Office. With that, we'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the budget amendment for FY 26 law enforcement vehicles.
Second.
We have a motion second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries. Next item is discuss and consider the FY 26 budget submittal plan. We just got our audit. Now it's time to start on the budget.
That's right. So yes, the 26 budget submittal plan was included in your agenda packet. Just kind of gives you an outline of the timeline of our budget schedule, starting with this evening, if you approve, down to our planned budget adoption date of June 3rd, and outlines the required dates for budget requests, departmental review and finances review, along with your time period for review, and the required public hearings, tentatively scheduled for May the 6th and May the 20th, upon your approval.
Any questions on the budget submittal? We'll entertain a motion.
Motion.
To approve the FY 26 budget submittal plan.
Second. We have a motion second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries. Next item is discuss and consider a traffic signal application from GDOT for State Route 10 at part of the shops of Oconee. Jody?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. This item of business is a traffic signal application from the Georgia Department of Transportation, and it is in connection with a proposed new driveway at US 78 and the shops at Oconee. And this would allow Georgia DOT to approve the permit for the signal application and the signal installation. And the financial part of it that we would be responsible for would be the monthly power cost of operating the signal. If it's installed and accepted by Georgia DOT, then Georgia DOT would own and operate the signal.
Help us out with the location of the shops of Oconee. What intersection would that be?
It's a new intersection east of State Route 53. So it kind of on the other side of Stripling's.
Let me ask you a question. Who pays for that?
The developer will pay for the installation of the traffic signal.
It was in the document.
Any other questions? Any public comment? And we're ready for a motion.
Make a motion to approve traffic signal application for GDOT at SR 10 US 78 as part of the shops at Oconee.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for approval. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Motion carried. Next time is discuss and consider the 2023 to 28 stormwater management plan revision. Cody?
Good evening. This item of business is a small housekeeping item, just revises a BMP 2 on the public education and outreach component of our stormwater management plan. Currently, we require an update to the website at least twice per year. And what this change would do would reword that to where we would review the information on the website at least twice per year and update as needed. And that was one that in the annual report comment period with EPD, that was something they had suggested, looking at that, and that wording they were acceptable with.
Any questions? Do we have any public comment? We'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion, we approve the stormwater management plan provision from 23-28 as submitted.
Second.
We have a motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Next item is discuss and consider the FY 25 BOCA grant award allowance. Let's
Thank you. The Western Judicial Circuit has been selected by the Criminal Justice Coordinating Council to receive continuation funds for the BOCA grant for federal fiscal year 2025, which began in October and ends September 30th of 2025. The award is same as prior year, $143,475, for which Oconee County manages. The revenues and related expenditures are already budgeted in our Victim Services Fund, and the grant does provide for 3 victim advocate positions. So the request this evening is for the approval of the VOCA grant proceeds. It's grant C-23-8249 in the amount of $143,475 for the federal fiscal year 2025. And of note, the 25% match that is typically required on this grant has been waived again for this federal fiscal year.
Any questions on this item? Any public comment? We'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve the vocal grant award.
A motion second. All in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Next item is discuss and consider the E911 Viper upgrade for law enforcement mobile data terminals. Melissa?
Thank you. This request is for contract approval of the Moda data terminals. These are the Panasonic Toughbook laptops that are located in all of the Sheriff's Office patrol vehicles. We're requesting to replace 55 of the laptops with the peripherals and the chargers. This would replace the existing equipment that's nearing the end of its life and will be discontinued with support towards the end of 2025. The funds are reserved in the general fund assigned fund balance in anticipation for this event to occur, but we do need to allocate those funds into the FY25 budget. So the request this evening is for the approval of the MDT upgrade with ProLogic at a cost of $201,151 with the necessary budget amendments for the life of the project not to exceed this contract amount, along with the authorization for the chairman to execute the contract.
Any questions for Melissa?
Is there a phased approach on this, or is it?
Yeah, so we had looked at one, we put money in the budget each year for them to replace on a cycle. Based on some of the changes that occur in the main software, that we found out that put us in a position where we still have some out-of-date stuff. So what we've been doing is putting enough money aside to buy phase replacement. So when we get to the replacement time, we got that money sitting. So in the budget each year, we have that capital set aside. So it's not we don't have to come up with 201,000.
Got it. Thank you.
And the current MDTs are just, you can't use them anymore at all? Will they be recycled? I mean,
No, they're past, these are over 5 years old. So most of our workstations are getting replaced at 5 years anyway, just because technology's moving quick.
Yeah, I don't think that, I think this was in the document. They're not even being serviced. So if they go down,
it's done.
you need it.
Gotcha.
You need it. Nobody coming with Calvin.
Any other questions? Any public comment? We'll entertain a motion.
I make a motion to approve the E911 Viper upgrade for law enforcement mobile data terminals, cost of $201,150.80.
A motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Next item is discuss and consider the purchase of a 1,650-gallon tanker truck. Alyssa.
Thank you. So the tanker truck that is being requested is for station number 5. They do have an existing 1982 tanker truck that they are looking to replace, which would then be placed in surplus for sale. The funding is available in our 2021 SPLOS referendum. Again, we just need to budget for that purchase and have your approval for the purchase to proceed. The estimated cost for the total project is $215,000. So the request this evening is to approve the purchase of a tanker truck for Station 5, not to exceed the $215,000, and to allow for the budget amendment in FY25, as well as for the life of the project, not to exceed the contract amount.
Any questions? Do we have any public comment? We'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the purchase of the 1,650-gallon tanker truck, not to, what is it, not to exceed 215,000. And
Second.
anything else she said, that I can't remember.
Second.
We have a motion second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries. We do not have need of an executive session, so Commissioner Sacks.
Motion to adjourn.
Second. Adjourned.